This is ACT practice set 2. What polynomial must be added to x squared minus 2x plus 6 so that the sum is 3x squared plus 7x? One way to do this problem is to set it up as an addition problem with the missing piece. You'll notice we have x squared, and you're adding something to get 3x squared. So that's telling you this first term should be 2x squared. Negative 2x plus 9x would give you 7x, so the correct answer was D. For I squared equals negative 1, 4 plus I squared equals what? You can put this in your calculator, but it does take a little time. So one easy way to do it is simply multiply 4 plus I times 4 plus I. You'll get 16 plus 8I plus I squared. Since I squared is negative 1, you need to choose an answer choice with 15 plus 8I. The answer was J. If R and S can be integers, such that S is greater than 10, and 2R plus S is equal to 15, which of the following is the solution set for R? Well, first, since S is greater than 10, you can solve the second equation for S, so S would equal 15 minus 2R. Substituting 15 minus 2R for the S gives you that is greater than 10. Solve that equation and you get R is less than 2.5. Since it has to be an integer and it has to be less than 2.5, the biggest integer less than 2.5 is 2. So the correct answer is R must be less than or equal to 2. The answer was E. Which of the following expressions has a positive value for all x and y such that x is greater than 0 and x is less than 0, or y is less than 0. So that means x needs to be a positive number and y needs to be a negative number. Well, the only answer that will give you a positive result is the last one, because since x is a positive number, we know y squared, because you square anything, you get a positive number. So that's the ratio of two positive numbers, so the answer K was the correct answer. What is the value of the log base 2 of 8? So remember, a log is an exponent. So if the base is 2 and your result is 8, then that exponent must be 3. 2 to the third power is 8. The correct answer was A. In the right triangle, the measure of angle C is 90 degrees and AB is 5 units. Both of those are already labeled. CB is 2 units. That's also labeled. What is the tangent of B? So the first thing you need is the other leg, and you can use the Pythagorean theorem to figure out that is the square root of 21. And so the tangent of B, which is down here on the right, would be opposite leg over adjacent leg, which is square root of 21 over 2. So the correct answer was F. A flight instructor charges $50 per lesson plus an additional fee for the use of his plane. The charge for the use of the plane varies directly with the square root of the time the plane is used. If the lesson plus 16 minutes of plane usage costs $90, what is the total amount charged for a lesson having 36 minutes of plane usage? It's a lot of reading on this problem, and even though it's a low-level skill, it's a high-level comprehension problem. So what you can do first is divide your fee up. You know that $50 is the charge per lesson plus whatever additional fee for the use of the plane, and he paid $90 for the first lesson here, it says. 16 minutes of plane usage costs $90. So I took off the $50, which we know he charges for the lesson, and I took the $40, and I used a direct variation equation. Y varies directly, so some number times the square root of the time. So I plugged in 40, which is what's left up here, equals K, which is some number, times the square root of 16, because he had 16 minutes. Square root of 16 is 4. So then I divided by 4 and got K is 10. So then I went back up here. I had $50 that he's going to pay for the lesson, plus 10, that was that value of K, times the square root of 36, because we have 36 minutes, so that's 50 plus 60, which is 110, and that is D. It would be very challenging to do this one in 1 minute, but That's why not all the questions require the full minute. Number 8, in the triangle ABD, C is on side BD, so that's the point C, and the length of AD is 6 inches, and the sine of D is 0.8. How many inches long is CD, which has got the question mark? Well, first of all, if you look at this right triangle, we have the hypotenuse. We also know the sine is equal to 0.8. So what I did is I just chose a variable and I used y for this vertical side of this right triangle. And I said the sine is y over 6, opposite over hypotenuse. And we already know the sine of D is 0.8. So I set those two things equal and solved that equation to figure out what y is. And since y is 4.8 and the hypotenuse is 6, I can use the Pythagorean theorem to find the missing leg, which is x. So the answer was 3.6. For real numbers a and b, when is the equation the absolute value of a plus b the same as the absolute value of a minus b true? Well, it is definitely not always true, because if I put in 1 and 2, I obviously don't get the same answer. That would be the absolute value of 1 plus 2, which is absolute value of 3, and absolute value of 1 minus 2 is 1, so it's not always. If a is equal to b, it is still not true, because 2 plus 2 is 4 and 2 minus 2 is 0, so that can't work. So the actual answers are these two. If a is 0 or b is 0, it's going to come out to be true, because this is absolute value of a equals absolute value of a. This is absolute value of b. Well, a negative b has the same absolute value as positive b, so these would be equal as well. So the correct answer is D, only when a is 0 or b is 0. As shown below, the rectangle ABCD is divided into 2 large squares labeled L. Each of those has X on the side, so these have X's on the sides. Then labeled S, each of those have Y's on the side, and then the R. Well, they don't tell you how they're labeled. Well, actually they do. They say they're X by Y. So what's the total area? So I just basically added them up. These are X squares, because X times X is X squared. So you should have 2X squared. F, H, J, and K have that. You have 15 Y squared. So you have 15 of these. So it's got to be F, J, or K. And then you have X, Y's. That's the R's. Well, there's 3 here. And there's, how many here? Let's see, 10 here. So that's 13 total. So we want 2X squared, 13 XY's, and 15Y squared. The answer was K. For some real number, the graph of the line y is equal to a plus 1 quantity times the x plus 8 in standard coordinate plane passes through the point 2, 6. What is the slope of this line? Well, the slope is whatever value's in that parentheses. So a quick way to figure that out is just take the equation they gave you and substitute the point 2, 6 for the x and the y, and then solve that equation to get the value of this a. A is negative 2. Well, slope is a plus 1, so negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. So the slope of the line is negative 1, which is C. The graph of the equation h is equal to negative a t squared plus b times t plus c describes the height of a baseball over time. And so you have a graph here. So it's asking you, if you only change c, which is this last term, what does this do to the graph? Well, it's going to change this number because c is the y-intercept. So, but if it changes this number, then this is going to have to raise up to go with it. And this is going to end up bumping over to the right if you go up more. And if you think about it, it makes sense. If you start out at a higher height, then you're going to be able to throw that baseball higher, which is going to make it take longer to hit the ground. So this will actually go to the right. So the answer was all of the above. 1, the h-intercept changes. 2, the maximum value of h, so this is going to go up. And 3, the time is going to change too, because this is going to bump to the right. So all of the above, which is K. When graphed in the standard coordinate plane, the lines x equals -3 and y equals x minus 3 intersect at one point. You could graph this in the calculator, except for this you can't really graph. You can graph this line. This first one, if you graph in the yellow calculator, is not a function, so it would not show up. But it's pretty easy to sketch a vertical line on paper at -3. And then this line intersects the y-axis at -3 and decreases. The only one that has a point that goes below this -3 is E. So the correct answer was E. -3, -6 is the point of intersection. A surveyor took and recorded the measurements shown in the figure below. If the surveyor wants to use the measurements to calculate the length of the pond, so if you look at the picture, the length of the pond is the opposite leg. So we have a side, an angle, and a side. We can't use the Pythagorean theorem. That's for right triangles. We don't need the area of a triangle. We need the length of a side. This is not a 30, 60, 90 or a 45, 45, 90 because this angle does not show up in either of those. So by process of elimination, you would pick K, but you can also think about side, angle, side with an opposite side. That's a classic law of cosines problem. So if you knew that, you would immediately choose K. For all the real numbers B and C such that the product of C and 3 is B, which of the following expressions represents the sum? So for this one, the easiest thing to do is just set it up. It says the product, which means multiply, of C and 3 is B. So I wrote this equation, 3C equals B. Solve the equation for C, and you know that C is the same as B over 3. When it says the sum of C and 3, you don't want to leave the C there because it says make your answer in terms of B. So you take out your C and put your B over 3 in its place. And so the correct answer was E. Which of the following expresses the number of meters a contestant must travel in a 3-lap race where the course is a circle? Well, to do this problem, you have to know that the radius of a circle times 2 pi will give you the circumference or the distance around. So C equals 2 pi r. Well, if you do 3 laps, you need 3 of those. And so the correct answer was K. 3 times 2 is 6, so you have 6 pi r. For the function h of x equals 4x squared minus 5x, what is the value of h of -3? You're simply replacing your x's with -3 and simplifying. If you have difficulty with negatives, you might want to type this in a calculator just like this. But this is 4 times 9, and this is positive 15, so 36 plus 15 is 51. So the correct answer was D. What is the slope of any line parallel to a line 8x plus 9y equals 8? If you don't know how to solve for y, you could just subtract the 8x and divide by the 9, or you could just take negative whatever the coefficient of x is over 9. So it's -8/9. The correct answer is G. In the triangle, you are given 2 sides, you're given 2 angles, and you have this side, and you're looking here for this side. This is a law of sines problem. They normally give you the formula on the ACT, but they didn't here. But here's the formula. A over sine A equals C over sine C. The reason I'm choosing those two is I have side C and I have angle C. I have to figure out angle A, but that's pretty easy to do. The 3 angles of a triangle add up to 180, so just take the 2 you know away and you'll get 105. Set up this proportion. A, which is this side length, over sine A, which is sine of 105, equals C 25 over sine C, which is 34. Cross multiply and divide. You'll notice they didn't work any of them out. So you would say 25 times sine of 105, which is one of these, divided by sine of 34, which is B. So the answer B was correct. If 2x squared plus 6x equals 36, what are values of x? Well, this is a classic quadratic equation. You have lots of ways to solve it, but for this one, I would factor. Step 1 is to get it equal to 0 by subtracting 36. Then divide out your 2 to get x squared plus 3x minus 18 equals 0. 6 times 3 is 18, so if you'll use a positive 6 and a negative 3, those add up to positive 3 here. So those are your correct factors. set each one equal to 0 and solve, and you get -6 and +3, so the correct answer was G. An alternative way to do that would be to graph this original equation and see where they intersect, and the x-coordinates of the points of intersection are -6 and 3.